Hello, welcome to 1 Week, 1 Year. This is a podcast where we go through cinema history 1 week at a time.
1 year at a time every week.
1 year at a time every week. Thank you.
Well, we'll work it out.
My name is Chris Ellie, and I just like movies, but I thought that I would bring on my friend Glenn Covell, who makes movies, for a little more educational background.
Banter. I make movies in the most general sense.
So yeah, I came up with this idea because I always felt like I was sort of like missing on certain like elements of film history, about being able to like really internalize what each advance in film art and technology meant. I remember reading someone talking about Citizen Kane and saying like, oh, it has been so copied since it's come out that all of the innovations of Citizen Kane are unrecognizable today, right? But for its time, it was this groundbreaking cinematographical achievement. And I was like, Citizen Kane's kind of boring, so hot take. It's fine. But maybe I would appreciate it more if I went through all of film history up to Citizen Kane, but then past Citizen Kane, because why not? Yeah, that's kind of my motivation for this thing. And we're starting... Oh, yeah, did you have something to say?
No, I mean, just that, like, I've seen Citizen Kane multiple times, and the first time I saw it, I definitely had that kind of reaction of, like, what's the big deal with Citizen Kane? It's just a movie.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it a handful of times, and I don't dislike it. I just think it's, like, fine.
It is, but, like, yeah, I think definitely upon rewatching it more and, like, learning more about it and, like, viewing it more in its context, I've definitely grown to like it a lot more.
Oh.
So,
well, anyway,
there's that.
Where we're starting here is in 1895.
Good old 1895.
Which is slightly arbitrarily picked, because the origin of film is kind of murky and disputed. But I think the most agreed upon is, December 28th, 1895, when the Lumiere Brothers premiered a paid showing to a group of people of 10 films that they'd shot that year, I think. And that is kind of considered to be the beginning of cinema as we recognize it now.
Yeah, the fact that it was projected on a screen, I think, is an important landmark. As to sort of like the modern conception of movies was really kind of started in 1895.
Yeah. So there were other like experiments a bit before then, which I think we can touch on a bit. Breaking the formula already. The thing about this that we're doing like 1 year at a time is that hypothetically, and I'm sorry that you maybe signed up for this, Glenn, this could take roughly 2.5 years to do if we're really diligent about it.
Well, unfortunately, I might have 2.5 years of just a lot of free time on my hands. So we'll see.
Oh wow, with like you think this? Okay, well yeah, that's sad.
Off topic.
It could take a while, but we're taking it 1 year at a time.
I don't know. That's exciting.
Cool, great. Anyway, let's back up a little bit further than 1895 and just set the scene a little bit. So I guess the earliest motion pictures were happening in the 1870s, with like Edward Muybridge, and the kind of famous famous animation, but it's not even an animation. Is the famous kind of picture series of horses of a horse running, and around that time, Edward Muybridge was trying to study motion and like locomotion in a way that had not been done before, and he considered himself a scientist, and he did like hundreds of short films. I think you could call them films, but they're like they're just like a series of 12 pictures. I think he set up like an array of cameras.
They're more like photo sequences, or sort of like very rapidly taken photographs that, when viewed together, create motion.
Yeah.
But it's like they weren't made with like a motion picture camera.
Right. They were photographs. They weren't like a strip of film.
Yeah.
I watched this in a documentary film class that I took in college. We watched this documentary called Edward Muybridge, Zoopraxographer.
What a great title!
Isn't that a great title? Oh, and for the podcast audience who may not know how Edward Muybridge is spelled,
it's spelled in the weirdest possible way.
It is EADWEARD and he made the Zoopraxoscope, and this movie was like a biography of him, basically, and he is the one and only Zoopraxographer, which is wonderful. And I was just looking up like some of the other, like, in that era, the late 1800s, all sorts of similar motion picture devices, going, as simple as like almost flipbook adjacent things, but some as actual cameras. But there was the Zoopraxoscope, the Bioscope, the Phantoscope, the Phenakidoscope, the Kinematoscope, Electrotachyscope, which I think is pretty good because it incorporates like the time element of film, Electrotachyscope, and then Kinetoscope, which was Edison.
And then, of course, they just settled on just calling them cameras. Because
it's just a camera.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, I guess it was already a camera.
Right, but
the still
I do
cameras.
think it's funny that people just got tired of saying those words. It's like it's just another type of camera. This is fine. That's it.
I feel like that would be nice to bring back. I always forget to do this, but I want to call movies pictures more. Just to sound more old timey and fun.
Yeah.
And so, shooting a picture on a kinematoscope,
Well, also, I mean, the kinematoscope is a very specific invention. It's like a C300. It's specific. It's a camera. It's a digital camera. Specific cameras have specific names.
Yes.
And so I guess like the kinematoscope is like the 1800s equivalent of like the Red Dragon.
Wow.
Red
that
with
just
all of their doofy names.
That just underscores how silly of a name the Red Dragon is.
It is very much. That is how far we've come.
And so based on my little outline that I wrote here, that brings us into Edison. What's the kind of stuff that you remember about Edison from film school?
Mostly just that he was definitely an early pioneer, both of primarily with kind of camera technology and like building the first motion picture cameras and things like that. And that the camera that he had a hand in inventing or patented or took credit for, I'm not sure which, was definitely kind of a lot of early filmmakers were able to use it, and it sort of led to a lot of early innovative things.
Was he distributing his camera a lot? I was reading about how the Lumieres were kind of protective of their cameras.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure the Lumiere's camera technology was somewhat based off of the Edison camera.
Hmm.
Like, I think he kind of put it out into the world, and then everyone kind of modified it and upgraded it and kind of turned it into their own things with their own silly names.
Finally, someone stealing from Edison instead of the other way around, huh? uh, and so he was shooting a lot of his movies in New Jersey, I think, right?
Yeah, well, he
Um,
he started the first film studio, which was like a
hmm
dedicated physical space built for the sole purpose of making movies in.
the kind of extremely just curtained black background of all of those early films.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was like I don't know all the details about it, but yeah, it was like a very kind of simplistic, like black box kind of, basically a black box theater. I think without a roof to let sunlight in, and that's about it.
Yeah, this is getting a little ahead, but I was thinking about the differences between the Edison films and the Lumiere films from this time, and
Mm-hmm.
um, all pretty much all of the Edison films are shot indoors, behind a black background,
Yeah.
and the Lumiere ones tend to be outside, and a little more naturalistic, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the vibe from watching Edison movies and Lumiere movies that, because Edison was this, he was this scientist, but he was also this showman in a way that was sort of like reflected in the movies that he was making. Um,
A bit. They're very kind of stagey, and
yeah,
um, I don't know, just sort of they do kind of feel like something that like would be behind a curtain at a circus. Like,
mm.
look at this. It's like people wrestling or like a person. Uh, you know.
Well, yeah, like I was, I've spent all day watching these 40-second movies on YouTube, and uh, I was trying to think of something to say about them. And the thing with a lot of these Edison movies is, these are early motion pictures, so their fixation is on the motion itself. And so with the Edison things, there's like nothing to distract you basically. Like we're taking a thing, it's like a person dancing, and then we're putting it
Yeah.
in a with a black background, and you are just looking at this thing moving, you know?
Yeah.
And so it seems somewhat scientific in that sense of it's just you are observing the motion of that thing in a Muybridge sort of sense.
Yeah.
Um, but then the stuff that he's doing are all like, look at this strange thing, look at this sideshow over here, you know?
Well, I think that kind of extends to the way that his films were exhibited. Like they weren't shown on a screen through a projector. They were in a little sort of box machine that one person had to look through like a viewing hole.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was like a podium that you looked into and you saw just a thing playing on a loop.
Do you know if you cranked it yourself?
Uh, I think so. Maybe.
Yeah.
I think I'm fairly certain that they have one at the Museum of the Moving Image in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if
I feel like I've used
if that one does, or if I think the one there does not require a hand crank, but I'm
Uh-huh.
guessing that some of the early ones probably did. Maybe.
Yeah, I see that's the thing that's I was talking about all these like various technologies that they had is that I can't really keep straight what's what, you know? Like
Mm-hmm.
I've used something that's sort of that I think was a kinetoscope. I think it could have been. It was a podium that you look into, but you turned a crank and it wasn't film. It was like a bunch of uh, cards, I think, that were on.
Oh yeah.
Like they
Mm-hmm.
spun around, and as you turn the crank, it was hundreds of cards, I think, to make like a full motion picture. But as you spun the cards around, then it created the motion.
Yeah.
That might not be though, since it wasn't
I
like.
yeah. I think that is something that I'm pretty sure predates like film motion picture of any kind. Like I'm pretty sure that's before Muybridge. They had like I guess they would be kind of considered animation, where it is like it's like a spinning thing with slots in it, and as it spins, you see the drawing move in it. It's kind of hard to describe because it's a weird physical shape.
Well, but it was photographs. It wasn't animation.
Was it?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm thinking of something else, but um, yeah, that is sort of the most basic form, I guess, of like images put together in a sequence that then, through some sort of technology or movement, appear to be a single image that's moving.
Persistence of vision. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. And so while we were looking through these, I think a lot of people think that sound wasn't in movies until the 1920s, the late 20s. That the earliest history of film was just completely silent. But the earliest history of film is really just people like throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
That's the vibe that I got from a lot of these shorts. Is they're just like
What?
figure it out, you know?
Yeah. One thing that I think is kind of cool about that, especially them being as early as this, pretty much anything you see in any of these really early films is the first time it's ever been put on film.
Right. Yeah.
So, like, you know, the first one you watch that has a dog in it, that's probably the first time a dog was in a movie.
That's pretty crazy. All the way to
Yeah.
Call of the Wild 2020.
With no dogs.
Yeah, that's true. It was. I guess it wasn't the last time the dog was in the movie.
The first movie,
Maybe it was a dog's
entirely about a
purpose.
dog with no dogs in it.
Balto would beg to differ.
Oh yeah, that movie probably still had more dogs than. I don't know why I'm like dunking on Call of the Wild. I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it either.
It's probably good. I don't know.
But anyway, with the sound, you know, they were experimenting with everything, and Edison was known for a lot of inventions, and one of them was sound related. He made the wax cylinder, and an early way of recording sound. And so there was a short from 1884 by it's W.K. Dickson, right? Is the
Yeah.
And that one is called the oh god, what is it called? Like the Dickson Sound Experiment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Dickson Sound Experiment, which is a really cool sounding title.
That's a good name for a band, actually.
It really. I wonder if there is a band that already took that because it's like a great name for a band to play warbly violin.
Oh yeah. I mean, I might try and splice in the audio from it, but it's extremely screechy and horrible.
So that means you have to.
Yeah, I guess so. Here it is. And now we're back.
Wasn't that awful?
So to describe to you what you would have been looking at when you just heard that, is it's a video of one man playing a violin. It might be W.K. Dickson. I don't know. Somebody playing violin. And he's playing it into a giant horn that is being and the violin is being recorded onto a wax cylinder. And back in those days, you had to play everything straight into a big horn. Otherwise, it wouldn't be picked up at all because there was no amplification. And then two men dancing kind of waltz style to the violin on the right side of the frame. And yeah, it is the first synchronized. It's the first movie with sound. It's the first movie with synchronized sound. What? I can't do math. 30 plus years before the Jazz Singer.
Yeah. And I think it was like it doesn't always usually really get the credit for first sync sound because it wasn't. They were just being recorded simultaneously, and I think it wasn't until the film was rediscovered in like 2000 that they were actually like
They even had the sound.
that they even like put them together and played them simultaneously.
Yeah. I
After
was
they were
reading, I think
recorded.
Walter Murch did that to the synchronization on the sound.
Oh, really? I didn't
Yeah.
realize that.
Yeah, I guess it is sound that can be synchronized, but the sound,
Yeah.
the wax cylinder was lost for 100 years. But it is not synchronized sound because it's not like actually
Right. Yeah.
attached to the film
Yeah.
itself.
But it's still a film from 1894 with sound, which until this week I didn't know existed.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty cool. Oh, you didn't see it in any of your various film
No,
classes?
that one never
That's
made the
wild.
cut. There were actually a bunch that I watched for this that
Uh-huh.
were like super huge milestones, like insane milestones of like things that every film uses that I had never seen before.
Yeah, that's the thing is it's like even in film school possibly, I feel like this era of film is
It,
so
it
skipped over,
it does it gets brushed over very quickly. They usually tell you Muybridge sort of did the first like you know sequence of photographs that were then shown as a motion picture, and then it kind of gets into Lumiere Brothers and Méliès, and it's it does kind of skip over this specific period of like the 1890s.
Yeah, but I mean, even silent film in general, I feel like is fairly ignored. Maybe not in film school as much, but there's a lot of great works of art in silent film.
Yeah, yeah.
That we probably won't be getting to for months and months and months. well,
Probably not, but when we get there, it'll be cool.
yeah.
'Cause there's some real doozies in there.
What's your favorite silent film?
I think it's it might be Sunrise.
I've never heard of that.
It also might be Metropolis. Sunrise is great. It's so good, and it's kind of like I feel like film nerds know it, but I feel like it's kind of slept on when compared to like Nosferatu or Metropolis or movies from the same era.
Yeah.
And it's
20s, I
great.
guess.
Yeah, I think Sunrise came out in 27.
Ooh.
I could be wrong, but
I haven't seen a lot of silent films, but I love Metropolis. I love it so much.
yeah. It is.
I-
I mean, it's kind of the star jewel of silent film.
Yeah, yeah. That's like
Is
so
star,
political.
is star jewel a term?
Is that like your favorite vape?
It is now.
Yeah. My star jewel.
Yeah, I mean, Metropolis is a good enough movie that you watch it now, and it's like, damn, this feels very relevant.
Yeah, no. I mean, so I first saw Metropolis when I was 16, and I really dug it. I just liked the vibe of it, and that was before they rediscovered all of that footage in Argentina.
Oh, cool.
So
Yeah.
I
You saw
mean,
the short one.
I was watching a much more compact movie
Yeah,
than,
yeah.
than the real one.
The one that wasn't 3 hours.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it was cool both ways. I saw it. I really liked it, and it had been a long time since I've seen it. I watched it again last year, and with a live score that was a pretty adventurous live score. It was like using like synthesizers and stuff, which I guess has precedent with the Giorgio Moroder version. But this guy was like it was like a one-man band, and he spent like 7 years composing it himself.
Oh, damn.
It was wild, and it was really good too.
Yeah.
And seeing it again now, yeah, I had not realized like how that movie is so. It's got so much to say about class and revolution and suppression and all that kind of stuff.
We are getting extremely off topic.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Sorry. um. So yeah, Edison was doing stuff, but over on the other side of the Atlantic, beep, 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 you couldn't. You know what I was just thinking about though? You couldn't take a plane. Like these people were having to take boats back and forth across the Atlantic.
Take a boat.
To going on a boat with their kinescope or whatever.
Yeah.
But over on the other side of the Atlantic were the Lumiere brothers,
The
And,
real innovators.
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know.
I
I'd give
think
them a lot of credit.
why?
I think. I just for kind of I feel like most of the things that we associate with movies started with the Lumiere Brothers.
Mm,
Both the sort of like public exhibition as like with a projector and a screen, but also just kind of a lot of I don't know. It just like they took it from this kind of a bit more of I mean they just viewed it as a novelty. Like they didn't really see it as like an art form or like this huge big thing. But I think that um, the stuff that they did with cameras and film kind of definitely helped push it in that direction.
yeah, I definitely think that their stuff, it feels more. I guess it feels more cinematic in the sense that it doesn't just look like an experiment.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like stuff that is being filmed.
Yeah, yeah, and that's I mean that's one of the big things is they filmed like actual things happening,
Right.
which is weird to say that that's like an innovative thing, but for the time it was like it's like let's take it outside. Like that
Yeah.
just doing that was like a huge
Well, so
a
the
huge
Lumieres
deal.
built their own camera slash projector because it was adaptable to be both, which is
Slash
wild.
slash
Slash.
like development studio.
Oh, really?
It developed the film also, which I don't
That's
even
so
I'm
cool.
sorry I could look it up how it worked, but like that's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah. Wow. And I think it was pretty compact too.
Yeah.
But so they invented their own process, and I think part of the reason why Edison was shooting inside of a dark studio was because I think he was afraid that he couldn't get the proper light outside to shoot with his cameras that he had.
Mm.
It's something that I've heard, but don't fact check me or whatever. Anyway, the Lumieres were emboldened to shoot outside, and one of the first movies that they shot was the iconic workers leaving the Lumiere factory.
Ooh, iconic,
it,
legendary.
it is iconic. Like,
It
what I
is,
was
yeah.
thinking? Like, there's a lot of these movies. You didn't see them in film school, and we just discovered them this week.
I did see this one in film school.
Yes, but like this one, I'm sure you would have. But as I was watching through some of these movies, I was thinking like there are a lot of images from these movies that somehow have seeped in to us.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
absolutely.
workers leaving the Lumiere factory is probably one of those. Even if you're not super into film, maybe you've seen some kind of reference to it, image to from it, or something.
Yeah. Well, it's so famous that it kind of it gets referenced and like spliced into stuff
Yeah,
a lot. So it is sort of you don't even necessarily have to seek it out. And it's
yeah.
also what like 4 seconds long, so
I
that
think
makes
it's
it
about
easy to kind of.
yeah, no, more than four, but yeah. But yeah, the basic setup of it is that it's a camera outside of a stationary camera. All this stuff is stationary that we've
Yeah.
been talking about. Outside of the door of the Lumiere factory, I guess they made stuff. I don't
I love the research that we've done into this.
know.
Yeah, I think they were like kind of inventor guys.
Yeah. I mean, it looked like they employed like 200 people or something like
Yeah,
that.
and a bunch of animals.
Okay. You talk about the animals because when I went to go rewatch Workers Leaving the Lumiere Factory, I was
Of
like,
which, of which there are three cuts.
there are three versions.
There are three versions.
There's
Yeah.
the Lumiere brother number one, the Lumiere brother number two, and the Snyder cut. But dumb joke. But when I was thinking back, like to that scene, so again, let me back up 1 second. In that the camera's outside of the door of the factory, and it's just people spilling out of the factory at the end of the workday, and it's something like 40 seconds long or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was thinking back to it, I was like, is there an elephant in this? Like the whole thing was so chaotic, and there were animals and people and just stuff moving all over the place. I just thought that, like, there's probably a circus elephant in this too, which there
Yeah.
definitely isn't.
I think you might be thinking of The Greatest Showman, which came out a little later than that.
What, that came out like maybe like 1899 or something?
Yeah, exactly. Hugh Jackman is a vampire.
No, Keanu Reeves is the only vampire.
I watching it though, I wouldn't be surprised if an elephant came out.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the thing is, it's like, it's so much more visually rich than these Edison pictures.
Yeah.
There's so much going on, and I think that was their MO for a lot of the stuff that they shot, was let's shoot natural scenes, but natural scenes that are busy with lots of movement and lots of chaos, you know?
Yeah.
They're most famous for the train arriving at the station, I think.
Right. Which is we're not there yet. That's
we're not there yet.
1896.
Spoilers. Spoilers. The train arrives at the station.
Well, I do think we could talk about how that's often misattributed to 1895 when it wasn't actually shown.
Yeah, I mean, I was having so much trouble with all of these things. I think the history is just bad with a lot of this stuff.
It's pretty muddy.
Because, there were some that were like, Wikipedia said it was 1895, and then IMDb said it's 1896, and then this guy's website said that it's 1895.
Yeah.
And it's,
Wikipedia contradicts itself, as Wikipedia tends to do some of the time. But I think it was shot in 1895, but it wasn't actually publicly shown until 1896. So we'll wait for next episode.
It was shown very, very early 1896.
Yeah.
So next episode.
Yeah.
But anyway, Workers Leaving the Lumiere Factory was screened in a set of 10 films for an audience, and this was the kind of inciting film incident.
Bringing in some screenwriting terms now. I see.
We're starting our Act 1 of film history. Exterior warehouse. Okay, I'm gonna stop. And so that's why we chose 1895 to start, because it seemed like the moment. This legendary exhibition, December 28th, 1895. And so the 10 films were shown, and this is another part of Wikipedia being inaccurate, because Wikipedia goes, this is the order of the 10 films, and then you click on the citation, and then the citation says a different order. So good job, Wikipedia.
Good old Wikipedia.
But I'm pretty sure this is the order. So it was.
Are you going to read them in English or French?
Do you want to read them in French?
No, I don't.
Okay,
maybe a couple of them.
Workers Leaving the Lumiere Factory, Trick Riding, Fishing for Goldfish, The Photographical Congress Arrives in Lyon, The Blacksmiths, The Sprinkler Sprinkled, Baby's Meal, Jumping the Blanket, Cordeliers Square in Lyon, and The Sea. And that was the program of 10 short films that changed the world. What'd you think watching over these movies?
Sorry, I was looking up French titles.
Oh, you want to say something?
No, it's fine. I had seen some of them. Like, I had seen Workers Leaving the Lumiere Factory. I had seen the baby eating. Maybe that's it. That might have actually been like 2 of these 10 that I had seen.
Yeah. I'd seen the Sprinkler one before.
I had not seen the Sprinkler one before, and that was easily my favorite.
Oh, it's so good. Like, it was, like, legitimately good. Like, where the rest of these are...
Well, I think it's pretty notable, and I'm pretty sure it's the first anything, as far as I can tell, that has any sort of plot or sort of story arc to it. I feel like all of the other ones, all of the Edison films, all of the like other Lumiere stuff, kind of feel like, I mean, they're moving pictures in the most kind of obvious, like, literal sense, where it is just sort of like a scene of a thing happening and it is moving. Mm-hmm. They feel kind of more like photographs from Harry Potter.
Right. Yeah.
That they're just comparison. I mean, there is a lot. They're very busy and there's a lot of movement to them, but they tend to be very sort of like a locked off thing of like people coming out of a building, or people going into a, or people jumping off a dock into the ocean, babies eating lunch. But this one is like a full scene.
Yeah. And it's funny.
Um, it is funny. It's got some slapstick in there.
Yeah.
It's great.
So what it is to describe it, it's a guy using a hose to water some plants, and
Then
he's off.
a rascally kid
Yeah,
comes
like
sneaks up behind him.
A rascally kid sneaks up behind him and steps on the hose, and the guy goes like, "What's going on? What's going on?" And he like looks at the hose as if
Looks directly into the hose, as you always have to do.
And then
when your hose stops working.
the rascal steps off of the hose and sprays him in the face
And knocks his hat off.
Yes,
This is a pretty good stunt. And then the gardener chases him and grabs him by the ear and beats him up. In a very staged way. They're like almost kind of, it's that thing where they're like, I'm not sure if they're actually looking at the camera, but it's that kind of thing. It's like, are we doing it right? Like, are we? Does this fight look real?
So the sprinkler sprinkled, which is one translation of it, it seems like such a cut above the rest of them.
It really does. Yeah, it really stands out.
It's so competently done. It's staged, but in a much more deliberate way than the rest of these. Something that I was noticing is that this movie actually uses the frame to tell part of the story.
Right, because it has someone entering, and
yeah, which is not something that I've seen in any of this other stuff. Or at least like people have incidentally entered the frame, but it's not like a deliberate choice.
It's not a reveal.
Yeah. Because at the beginning of the sprinkler sprinkled, you see the guy on the far left of the screen and just the hose in the negative space on the right side of the screen, just waiting to be stepped on.
It
and
almost
then the rascal comes in from the right side.
I think like watched in context. I don't remember where it is in the order. It might be
number
the last.
6.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It does almost kind of feel when it starts, it's like, oh, this is just gonna be a guy watering the plants, because that is up until this point, that's really all that we've seen. It's just sort of a single scene of a person doing the thing that they're doing at the beginning of it. And the fact that this rascal comes in is, you could almost call it the first plot twist.
Interesting.
I think that's a bit of a stretch.
The first plot twist.
That's a bit of a stretch, but I'm going to stick by it. It's the first plot twist.
Yes.
Yeah. Plot twist, a rascal shows up.
Not a little rascal, though. He's just a regular one.
Yeah. He's a medium-sized rascal.
Ah. A regular-sized rascal.
Yeah.
But another thing that I was noticing with a lot of these films, if we're talking about the block of 10 of them as a unit, is that there's basically like 2 types as far as like composition is or composition or just like motion is concerned. There's like one that is a locked off shot of a thing happening like right in front of you, and like it's just an event happening.
Yeah.
And then the other, which is more than half of them, 6 of them, I think, it's still a locked off shot, of course, but there's something like dynamic about it. There's something coming toward you into the frame, right?
Yeah.
It's like using the 3D quote unquote space. With the workers leaving the Lumiere factory, they're walking toward the camera.
Right. Yeah.
There's the shot of the Cordeliers Square in Lyon. It's like a lot of the cars are coming toward you. And then in the last one, the sea, it's people swimming. It's people jumping off a dock and swimming back to shore toward you.
Right, so it's both. It's both directions on the z-axis.
Which I think is really cool. I think it's a nice, it feels considered. It maybe not, maybe it wasn't intended to be from an artful perspective, but it's like, we're using this new medium. Like, let's do something. Like, let's use it.
Yeah. There's also the people using the rug as a trampoline.
Yes. And then
I forgot what that one's called.
That one is called Jumping the Blanket. there were a couple other movies that were notable from 1895. One of them was the Serpentine Dance, which was another one that I'd seen
Great.
before. Yeah,
I'd
really
seen that
good.
one.
Um,
Definitely kind of sticks out because it's the first hand colored film.
yeah, the first film in color in general, I
Yeah.
think.
Um,
Um,
which is pretty crazy.
and so it's like a lady who is in a very flowy dress, and she's doing. I guess apparently this was a popular dance around the time, the Serpentine Dance, which is just just kind of swirling the dress around in
Yeah.
a cool way. It's very smooth. The motion is very very smooth in that
It
one.
is, yeah. I did not look it up, but I'm gonna hazard a guess that it was shot at a higher frame rate than the other films because of how smooth it looks.
Yeah.
Um,
Smooth and colorful. The colors are really cool. They're not literal colors. That's
yeah.
another aspect of it. Is
Mm,
they're
right.
her dress is changing color as she
Yeah.
moves it around.
It's
Uh,
colors that can't really exist in the real world, which is
yeah. So
interesting.
it was either an intentional fanciful touch or it was a very bad job doing the painting.
I think it was intentionally fanciful.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, it does. I believe that's another Edison one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We're
And it kind
yeah.
of plays into that sort of more like stagey kind of.
Yeah.
Look,
It's
a
just a
lady
person
dancing.
in front of a black background.
Yeah. Um, Another one that I don't believe I had ever seen, but I think is incredibly notable is the execution of Mary Queen of Scots.
Yes. Yes, indeed. You want to describe that
Um,
one?
sure. I mean, that one is just a scene, a very quick scene of a bunch of like medieval looking soldiers, I guess, and an executioner with an executioner's hood and a big old axe, and an actor who I read was a man playing Mary Queen of Scots, as was the theater tradition of the time. Uh, Bends down over a chopping block. The axe goes up, and there is a cut.
A
And
pretty well hidden
the
one.
yeah, well, especially because the film is so choppy that it's sort of like.
Yeah.
But there's a jump cut, and the actors who plays Mary Queen of Scots is swapped out for a dummy, and the act comes down and chops the head off, and then it's over.
Well, no, it's
But
not over because they pick up the head and then parade it
oh yeah,
around,
they do pick
holding
up
the
the
head
head
in
and
the
look
air.
at it.
It's so violent. Like it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, well that's an Edison one, and but it is, I would say, the kind of the most ambitious of all the Edison films that I watched.
Yeah, I would say that too.
It's got costumes. It's depicting a historical event, which is an interesting
Yeah.
thing. And
Apparently,
it's
all the people were actors too. Like this was the first one with paid actors,
oh, interesting.
like stage actors that they
Right,
were using.
like theatrical actors.
Yeah.
I don't know if I knew that. But I I mean it's the first proper edit in any of these. The first time there is
Yep.
a cut, like an actual honest to goodness cut where they stop the camera
Yeah.
and start it again.
And it's being used to do a special effect.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's
Yeah.
the first special effect, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Just because it's such a given, especially now in film, how much like effects are I don't know, effects are so built into the entire history of film. And this is the first time that anyone really was like, if we stop it and start again, we can change stuff, and no one, it's like we can make it look like a thing happened.
Yeah.
And it's like it's the simplest, most like, archaic form of a special effect, but it works.
Yeah. And as early as next week, we're going to be seeing some much more complex special effects.
Yeah.
With George Millet, right?
Oh yeah.
But for now, we've got this beheading, which I also saw it referenced as the first horror film, which I buy. I think
Right.
it's
Well, because the emotion that it's meant to elicit is kind of revulsion and
yeah,
horror.
it's shocking. I mean, like
Yeah.
it doesn't look shocking to me, but it is compared to a lot of this other stuff. It's pretty like gruesome.
Certainly compared to a baby eating breakfast, it is
Yeah.
quite shocking and gruesome.
Yeah, it made me wonder how common it is to see people being beheaded in the 1800s.
I mean, I'm trying to remember. I mean, was an American film, but I'm trying
Yeah.
to think in France when that became like illegal, and it was very late. I don't remember what year it was.
Oh, the guillotines and stuff? It was the
Yeah.
70s when they
Okay,
became...
there you go.
Yeah,
That
the
was even late.
1970s.
That was even later than I was thinking of. But I
Yeah.
just remember it was shockingly late. So yeah, who knows?
I guess. I don't know.
How
I just
commonplace
kind of
that was.
picture the 1800s as like a more violent time. Maybe that's just from watching movies and stuff
I mean,
of like westerns and everything.
yeah. I mean,
Public executions and all that, you know.
definitely that aspect, this sort of like public execution, like live death aspect is, I think, was a lot more popular back then.
Yeah. Um Maybe we could talk about one more. I know were you into the Mechanical Butcher? That was a
Mechanical
cool one.
Butcher, I thought. Well, I saw that one cited as the first sci-fi film, which is maybe a bit of a stretch, but I think is an interesting way of looking at it. Um, it's very simple. It's like a big old box sort of thing, and a guy leads a pig into one side and then opens the other side, and there's a bunch of sausages in there, and he kind of brings them out and serves them up like to sell them. And
Yeah.
it's written on the big box as the Mechanical Butcher in French, which I'm not going to look up, or try to say. But
It's neat.
It's kind of like a magic trick. It's kind of it is also kind of like this silly. I don't know. It's very much in the sort of like illusion based.
Illusions.
Yeah. Sort of like the Mary Queen of Scots one. It's like
Yeah.
using. It's not really using film to make the illusion like it would work on stage.
No. Well, yeah, because it doesn't. That's the thing. It's like the box is big enough to hold both the pig and the pork that
Yeah,
they're
I mean
pulling out of the
they're not
box.
fooling anybody. But
Yeah.
it's still just kind of a funny thing that there's this big box that says the Mechanical Butcher, and he puts a pig in it and then pulls a bunch of sausages out. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I
found
mean,
it
I don't.
amusing.
It's cool. It is cool. I wonder like, would is that the kind of thing that anyone would have been like fooled by, or like how did they do that? You know, because it seems very obvious how they did it. Versus I think the Mary Queen of Scots thing, where somebody could, especially somebody who's not familiar with jump cuts, you know, could go like, oh my god, like how did that happen? How did they do that? You know,
I fully believe that was the intention. Like that was the intention, and probably the reaction from people when they saw it was that this was film of someone being beheaded, and especially considering that it's like, I don't know. I am kind of curious if Edison was like, this was the real thing. It's like
huckster.
no, it wasn't. But yeah, I think it was. I mean, if you had no concept of even like how film functioned mechanically, I don't know how you would like immediately jump to like that's
yeah.
Fake.
But regardless, the Mechanical Butcher thing was I dug it too. It had the vibe of like a late 1800s snake oil salesman, like, ooh, it's the Mechanical Butcher.
Yeah, yeah. I think that too is another reason why I found it so amusing.
That's definitely your vibe.
So snake oil salesman.
I mean, am I wrong?
I mean, it's not the most flattering, but sure.
It's something. It's the kind of thing that you appreciate. I'm not saying
Sure,
that you are a snake oil salesman.
Just that I'm a fan of them. No, I'm a fan of old.
You bought much snake oil lately? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Snakes famous for their oil.
Well, good that you're a fan of old timey things, because you're on the hook for a lot more of them, Glenn Covell. I guess unless you have anything else, I would say
I think it's a good spot to wrap it up. I mean, we had some lively discussion about these couple movies and how I guess important they are, sort of the things that they did that are notable.
Yeah. This was fun.
Yeah.
So, I suppose I'll see everybody. We'll see all of y'all, all of y'all out there in podcast land, in episode 2, where we'll be talking about 1896, and it should probably be a lot shorter than this one because it didn't have all of the previous establishment and
Right.
and
Less backstory.
earlier years and everything. We'll just talk about 1896.
Yeah.
And you are welcome. I probably should set up like some kind of infrastructure for this podcast, which I definitely haven't. But people submitting films would be great. Submitting suggestions for stuff for us to watch. And I don't have anything set up for that right now. So just message me on Facebook because no one is listening.
Because if you're listening to this,
doesn't...
you definitely know us personally.
Yeah. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I'm a big TikTok advocate right now because it's the best social media platform. Message me on TikTok.
Nah, letterbox all day for me.
Yes. I just clogged up my Letterboxd feed with so many 15-second films.
You clogged up my Letterboxd feed also.
Oh yeah.
I can say this on the podcast. I started logging and reviewing all of these on Letterboxd, and I got through 4 or 5, and I was like, I'm not gonna do all of these.
My eyes were just so glazed over after watching all of these movies.
Yeah,
that's not like a knock on them exactly. It's just that they're all very simple and they're all the same thing. You know? So expect very simple and all the same thing for the next number of weeks until we get to a trip to the moon, I guess.
Well, no, I mean next week we got the first Georges Méliès movies.
True. And we've got Arrival of the Train at the Station, which is...
Stone Cold Classic.
Stone Cold Classic. Cool. Well, thanks for listening, if you did. And I'll see you next week. And I'll see you next week, Glenn.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.